On this episode of Nostalgia Stories, Antenna TV sat down with Abdul Fakir. You might remember him from the songs Ain't No Woman and Baby I Need Your Lovin'. Listen as we chat with Duke about the Four Tops and Motown. How did the quartet form?
One group of girls gave a party after our graduations. They're very bourgeois kind of girls. It was called the Scheherazade. So they knew Levi and I could sing, and they like somebody to sing at their party, so they invited us. So Levi and I talked, said, come on, let's invite two other guys, make it a group. So we knew about Obi, he could sing, and we knew Lawrence was a good charmer, and he could sing well. We invited them to come with us. Now, we didn't rehearse anything, they didn't even talk about the song. We just going to the party for what the young guys go for the party for. In the middle of the party, the lady of the house says, look, I got Levi and Duke here. They're going to sing a song. So we said, no, we got a whole group. She said, well, that's even better. So I said, Levi, go ahead, you just sing. We just back you up. And our voices blended so well. I automatically was the first tenor. Lawrence was automatically a second tenor. And Obi was automatically a baritone bass. And for somehow or another, we knew our parts, and we just started singing, making up little riffs that we harmonized with. It was like we had rehearsed this song for a week or so. I mean, Levi was singing, he looked back and was smiling. So, well, anyway, we got a standing ovation. Now, we all had sung in groups because groups are very popular there. And we knew what a group sounded like. We sounded great. So we all said, hey, look, let's make this a group. Let's start rehearsing tomorrow. We rehearsed. We learned quite a few songs. We found out we learned songs so fast it was ridiculous. So after about a week of rehearsal, we said, come on, let's go to the amateur show in Detroit. We didn't have real uniforms, but we dressed cool enough, but we sang our butts off. And we won the amateur show. We won $25. But an agent came to us and said, look, man, you guys are good enough. I can book you a nightclub. I said, you mean we can make some money doing that? And he said, yeah. He said, but you're going to need pictures and you're going to need some uniform. I said, oh, well, if you're going to make some money, we'll figure that out. My cousin was an up-and-coming photographer, so he made us a lobby. We scraped up enough money to go to Hot Sam's in Detroit. You might have heard of Hot Sam's. We picked out a whole outfit in about half an hour. So I said, well, I think we got enough. He said, well, I hope so, because we don't give credit. So after he added it all up, we were like $50 short. And he said, well, I'm sorry, when you bring me my $50, you can have the stuff. So I said, no, man, we got to take this with us. We got to take pictures. We're going to get a job. As soon as we get the job, we're going to bring you your money. For some reason, he finally broke down. I said, don't worry, you're going to get it. I said, it might be a week, maybe 2 weeks, but we'll bring it to you. He said, I'm going to see. We put on those uniforms, we took some great pictures. Oh, they come out great. We called the agent. I said, we got some pictures and we got uniform. He said, that ain't all, I got you a job. I said, where? Up in Flint, Michigan at Eddie's Lounge. He said, this coming weekend, you work 3 nights and you're going to make $400. What? Oh, so when we got off stage, everybody looked at each other. I said, man, I want to do this. I'm not going to college. So I think we can do this to make a living. Everybody said, well, the same with me and Levi. I said, well, I done told y'all all the time. That's all I want to do is sing. So we made a pact, and he started getting us engagements.
What paved the way to your success?
We worked all kind of places. We were very fortunate. We were a good-looking young group. We were sharp, and we could sing all kind of songs. So we could work in different places. You know, we worked the Chitlin Circuit, which is the black club around the country. We also worked the Playboy Penthouse Circuit at night. We worked in the lounges in Vegas. We worked in production shows with the Dancing Girls and blah, blah. We had a lot of those, a couple of those anyway, from Larry Steele, Smart Affairs. Well, you know, we just kept on and kept on.
How'd you come up with the name?
1956, we signed with Chess Records. Phil and Liddy Chess came down really quick, say, hold it, before y'all record, you got to change that name. We all asked, well, why? You know, the Four Ames, he said, the Four Ames brothers are very popular, and they're a white group. And I said, well, of course, people will know the difference. I said, no, you just can't have the same name, even though it's spelled different and all that. So we was kind of wondering, say, oh, shoot, we don't know what to do, man. Our musical director that we brought with us from Detroit asked the question, well, why do you call yourself the Four Ames? I said, because we was shooting for the stars, we're aiming to be the top, you know. We want that name to signify what we were doing. He said, well, what about 4 tops? Everybody looked. It sounds great to me. And a few minutes, say, let's go. Session's on.
How'd you end up signing to Motown?
Well, we had a lot of different recording contracts before we went to Motown. It was a long story. And Motown was really just down the street. But we didn't want to go with a black company back then. There was 2 black companies in Detroit that was piss poor. They didn't do nothing for the artists. When somebody said, this guy, Berry Gordy, who we knew, because he would be in the clubs taking pictures, and he was writing songs with Lawrence's cousin, who was very close to us. They were writing songs with Jackie Wilson. Lawrence's cousin asked when he started the company, hey, you want to go with this record company? I can get you in there. I said, hell no, we don't want to go with no black company back there. We was looking for, big stuff. He said, okay. Well, that's where it was. We went to Columbia at the same time Aretha went. She started doing good there. We did not. We had a 4th side. You cut 4 sides. They released one, and if it was a hit, they give you a real deal. So that didn't hit. It was just like chess. That didn't hit. Then we finally went to Riverside, and we were in New York recording at Riverside. And we were also working in the Catskill Mountains. And all the great artists would come there and work. So we worked with people like Sarah Vaughan, Della Reese. We actually had a wonderful place to hone our skills. We worked as vocal background singers for Billy Eckstine for 2 years. Motown Review was playing at the Apollo. So, of course, we went and seen it. We said, oh, man. So we've been going on these record companies. We should have went to Motown. Look at these guys. I thought we could really kill that show. I don't know how we gonna do this, but we need to go to Motown. There was a guy from NBC said, look, I'd like to have you all on my Tonight Show. That's when Steve Allen was the host. We came on there and we sang the song In the Still of the Night, one by Cole Porter, the standard, The Still of the Night. And we sung it in 4-part harmony like the 4 Freshmen, Barry saw it on TV, said, oh man, I know them guys. He said, I've been watching them. He said, it's a bad boy. So he's talking with his AR director. He said, do you know how to get in touch with him? He said, yeah, I know him. I talk to him, about once a week. He said, well, look, man, get in touch with him. I want them on my record label. Because nobody can sing songs like they do. I just want them. So Mickey Stevens called us. When he did, we like to jump through the phone, man. We was in New York. We just broke everything. We just left New York right away and come back home. And we went up the steps at his view, and it was like, I could almost feel my life changing then. I said, man, I said the words, I remember the words, I said, this is gonna be a bit of heaven. And so we went up and we started talking with Barry. And he said, yeah, he said, you boys really sound good. And then I've heard y'all in some different clubs here in Detroit. You guys can really sing, and I like because you can sing old standards and all that kind of stuff. I don't have acts that can do that. So I'd like to sign you guys up. I said, okay. So he said, here's the contract. So we looked at it. We said, look, I said, well, we need to take it home and take a look at it. He said, no. I said, I don't let my contracts out the office. You have to sign it right there. I said, oh, no, we can't do that. I said, we've been with a record company. We have to see what's on there, blah, blah, blah. We have to look. We went back and forth. I said, well, man, we just can't. So I was upset. I said, man, we just can't sign the contract without reading it, and we got to go home to read it. He said, well, I tell you what, the first time I ever did this, bring my contract back tomorrow. Okay. So we took it home and we talked about it. And the only thing we was looking for was one word. Advance. Because we knew that you're supposed to get some kind of advance. We've been with record companies, so we didn't see that in there. That was the one thing that we was really looking for. All the rest of it we didn't pay much attention to, a little bit. So I said, well, we have to go back and ask him, that's all. Put it in there. So we talked about it. I said, what if he don't give us one? I said, well, one thing we ain't gonna do, we're not gonna miss this chance to go with Motown. But we're gonna have to fight him for this advance. I said, okay. So we went to the office. I said, here's your contract. Barry, but there's one thing that we read. He said, the one thing that noticed was missing, and that's an advance to your artist, which is recoupable. You say, well, I don't do that. He said, I've never given advance. I don't do that. He said, we don't have that kind of money. You know, we're just starting, blah, 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 we're getting going. I said, well, you know, this is the way record deals are made nowadays. You have to give some kind of advance. We went back and forth again, blah, blah, blah. He said, look, man, see, I told you, I just don't do that, man. He said, I want to sign you guys, so either you're going to sign my contract now or we're going to have to forget it. I said, well, we got to have an advance. So guys kept looking around, getting itchy, and we kept looking at him. We stopped talking for about a minute. We were looking at each other. He said, I tell you what, because I really want you guys. He went in his pocket. He counted out 4 $100 bills. He said, here's $100 to each one of y'all. I said, give me the pen. Because we were going to sign, and that was all we needed. Anything along that way. Well, and the rest is pretty much history, you know. But that was 9 years after we started. But those 9 years were great because we were constantly climbing up little ladders. We're going to beautiful places, new. One night we'd be in Texas singing in a nightclub or in a supper club, and the next night we could be in this joint where there's a burlesque show and we sing with sawdust on the floor. So we really got our training in show business. And after we left Billy Eckstine, we sung with him for 2 years. He said, fellas, he said, y'all are really great. He says, I don't see why y'all can't make it now. I said, well, you know, maybe so. He said, well, look, take your wings and fly on by. And that's when we went to New York and blah, 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 and the rest is history. And when we did sign with Motown, we called Billy Eckstine and asked Barry, would you like to have Billy Eckstine on your label? He said, yeah. So we asked Billy to come, and he did. He made an album on that Motown label. But he didn't like the label. He left there cussing. But so that's how we got to Motown.
Do you consider yourself a Four Tops fan?
How did the group stay together for so long?
Well, a couple things. There's a commitment that we made. We knew from watching groups, you know, that groups always break up. One guy go this way, one guy go that way. I mean, and some of them were really good, but you start breaking up, you're missing the boat. So we vowed, we made a commitment, one to each other. And there's a long story behind that, which is in the book. I'm not going to put it, but it's the real reason why we stuck together through thick and thin. We fought to each other. We did whatever it took. We kept our words. People kept trying to pull Levi out of the group. This guy was trying to do this and that, and all kind of different things. But we stood together.
So how did success change your life?
First of all, that first big hit, which was Baby, I Need Your Lovin', life-changing. Immediately after we heard it on the radio, we knew it was a hit, and we started preparing a show that would go, you know, because we knew we was going to start getting bookings. Well, it was life-changing to me. It changed my whole life. I went to Barry again. When that came out and we were selling real good, I said, Barry, he said, what does it do? I said, I need a real advance. He said, come on, man. He said, y'all just start selling a record. I said, but you promised us hits, and I know this is going to be a hit. I said, this is a hit, and we're going to have many, many more. I said, because them guys, Holly, Dozier, and Holland, I can tell, they can write, you know. So I almost begged him. I said, he said, what the hell you need that, an advance for? I said, my mama worked for these people scrubbing their floors, cleaning their house. And they asked my mama about, did she know this group called the Four Tops? My mama said, yeah. She said, well, they playing somewhere in Detroit in a month. And you know how I can get there? She said, well, maybe I can find out. So my mama told me about that. And that's when I had tears in my eyes. That my mama was scrubbing somebody's floor that wanted to pay to come see his son. That's when I said, I'm going to get something. I said, Mama, you start looking for a house. Okay, she said, well, I've been looking, but I just don't know how. I said, you just keep looking. And when you find it, let me know. So I went to Barry, And that's what after questioning me, he said, well, okay, man, what do you really need? I said, oh, I'm going to tell you why. I said, I'm trying to get my mama off her damn knees. And I told him the story about the people that want to come see us. I said, so I'm getting my mama off her knees. I want to retire. I want to buy a house. It's that simple. I said, she don't want no big house. Just a nice house for her and her daughters. And it's fine. He said, oh, man, you put me in the cross all the time. I said, dude. He said, well, come back tomorrow, man. I'll see what I can do. When I came back, that day, he had a check written for me for X amount, and then he had a $2,500 check for the IRS to pay taxes on it. I took that money. I told my mama, now you go look for your house. I said, I got the money. She said, what? I said, and that ain't all. This is the last day you work. Get your ass off your knees. That's it. She said, oh, come on. I said, I'm telling you, just quit. That's it. She found a house in about 2 days. I gave her the money. I had a little left. Went downtown, bought me 4 pair of alligators and a Cadillac. Down payment on the Cadillac. And I cried all weekend long. I was so happy. That was the happiest day of my life. So my mother could not believe it. I showed her the house she wanted. I said, there it is, Mom. She almost cried. I said, don't you never work another in your life. She never did. So that was, I mean, I could have left this earth that day. All my kids, like, I could send them to the best colleges. I just don't believe that all of this can happen to the kids. When you think of doing things and being big, you know, it's kind of small into what has happened. You know, maybe you want to talk to the United States, but I don't think that you can talk to the Motown. And it's just completely happy. And at my age, for me to be doing what I did as a kid is such a blessing. It's a blessing to have the same voice that I had as a kid. This is more of a blessing. People at my age think he's the same. You know, they're doing good if they can get up. So, you know, very blessed. So very, you know, he has a heart. A lot of people talk about he's a too hard a businessman. He's a good businessman, but he has a heart. I found that out a couple of times.
Why did you leave Motown?
Barry had given the president temporarily to a guy called Ewart Abner. Barry was out there working on the movement, moving the company and all that. So this guy said, well, y'all look like y'all had your run. We don't need you anymore. I said, what? I mean, we were shocked. He said, no, we don't need you, man. You had some nice hits, but, you know, that's it for you all, man. Go ahead. You can go and do what you want to do. We were so mad. We wanted to kick his ass, excuse my spirit. But, of course, we took the high road. We said, okay, all right. We went outside the room. We said, what we gonna do? But then we kept talking. We said, well, now's a good time to find out who we are. Are we just under that umbrella of Motown that has carried us this far? Or can we do it by ourselves? I said, well, we're gonna find out. So we put the call out to a few people that we were free. One guy who was a record promotion man at Motown came to us and said, look, man, he said, I can get y'all. His name was Larry McAvoy. He said, I can get y'all a contract easily. He said, I'm on my way to California to promote some records. I know this company, I believe, they would love to have you all. I said, well, go ahead and talk to him. He was out there about 2 or 3 days. He called us back. He said, look, man, they want you and they want you bad, but listen to these 2 songs. These guys written for you all. I said, well, how are we gonna hear them? He said, well, I'll bring the tape. I'll be back home tomorrow. I'll bring the tape of the 2 songs. He came and we listened. The song was Ain't No Woman Like the One I Got, Keeper of the Castle. Very raw, but we heard the potential. Said, man, yeah. Oh yeah. I said, yeah, let's go out there and talk to this guy. He said, yeah, he's waiting for you. We went out there the next day and we made a record deal. We made a 4-record deal. Gave us a nice advance. Yeah. And we would come out to LA, stay at the Beverly Hilton, and record our album. As long as we wanted to stay at the Hilton, as long as we were recording, they took care of all the expenses and all that, blah, blah. And, and that was good, because that when we released the first record, it was Keep of the Castle, which we decided to release that first, and then Ain't No Woman. And they both were hits. Keep of the Castle was a decent hit. Ain't No Woman was a big hit. It was almost #1. So, we found out that we don't always need a big company behind us, or a big machine behind us. We just have to sing well and sing from your heart, which we did. And we went to a few other record companies from there, too. We stayed there for about 3 years. It did fairly well, It wasn't a Motown, but, it did well for us. And then we went to Casablanca, where we had When She Was My Girl, another big hit. So, but one thing about it, we were a good working group. We always had plenty of work to do, plenty of concerts, plenty of shows. So we were quite content.
You have a favorite song?
Baby, I Need Your Lovin', changed my life, changed our life. So that's basically my favorite, and it's a good song. It was, well, back then, in '64, that was a big production. That was the first time they had the big strings and the voices and the this and that. It was a very big production, and it was a great song. And it's almost like our opening song anyway now. But that really, to me, was the life changer for me, and so it's definitely my favorite.
What made the Motown experience so unique?
Well, back then, everybody loved Motown. Everybody across the world. It was a brand new sound. It was slowly becoming the #1 record company in America. People were having hits across the world, which we never dreamed of. We always thought, that just having the hits in America is monstrous. But to have #1 and #2 in Japan and Amsterdam, UK, blah, blah. I mean, it was absolutely tremendous. But the one thing that we're really more proud of than anything, when Martin Luther King was quietly walking and running into his problems with the civil rights movement, the Motown sound was creeping into people's houses that had never been there before. They were listening to the music. They were seeing the black artists on TV, and it changed. It gave them a different thought of how we were, how we are, because everybody on TV looked great. Was great looking, great, sharp, sang well, and they loved the music. And that's the one thing we're proud of. It kind of softened the blow of civil rights movement, because people were more open with the music that was playing, which we have found out over the years it's the best universal language that we have. Music is, everybody in the world loves music. And I found out all our travels, everybody in the world loves Motown. You can hear songs from Motown. You can go anywhere. They don't even speak English, but if you go, they'll sing them songs with you. So it's amazing what it has done. From that little area in Detroit, the North End, pretty much, where most of us come from, it's like one little seed planted in Detroit, right in the middle of Detroit, and then it grows into a global flower. It's amazing. I mean, right now, I'm still overwhelmed how my life has come and what we have done, and how many people will tell you that we love you. And I grew up on your music. When some veterans tell us they made it through Vietnam listening to Motown sound and stuff like that, you feel like you've done something, and not just for you, but you've done something. You make so many people happy. You pull some of our guys through the war. Then one guy told me a story, man. He had his leg shot off. He was putting him in the helicopter to take him. And he said, "Wait a minute, man. I got to get my music. Take me back." He went back to his little tent to he left his music and his cassette. And he said it was one of the four top songs he was playing, "Still Waters Run Deep." Man, I like to cry. And then he got back on the plane. So the music has touched so many people, and it makes me happy. I mean, that's all. Well, I never thought of when we first started, we wasn't thinking about money. We was just thinking about being good, being one of the, we could sing as good as anybody in the group out there. We really knew that.
Thanks for watching.
This video raises questions, and I need for you to be as honest as possible in the comments when answering them. And just so you know, I have 3 questions. Number 1, do you know the name Abdul Fakir? Number 2, name your favorite song from the Four Tops. And number 3, have you seen the Four Tops in concert? Now please be honest when answering these questions in the comments. Share this video with anyone you deem necessary. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.